I beg to introduce him. I bet when I served as the chairman of the President's Committee on the Arts and the Humanities for 2 years, Consul General Ibarra was there in Washington, D.C. at the embassy. So we got to know each other there. I'm very grateful when we were focused on Mexico and cultural relations with Mexico. That was when the first state dinner was with Mexico, but then 9/11 happened, and a lot of attention focused away, but culturally, we kept the ties strong. How are you? First of all, I wanted to start with a quote. Tom Lea is such a great vehicle to explore our region. So this comes from his book called A Picture Gallery. It has always seemed to me that I was fortunate in being born on the border in a town where two nations and two peoples meet, where more than one mode of life and one mode of thought are in constant confrontation to test and to broaden and to deepen one's view of the world. At Paso del Norte, I believe men are reminded daily that human beings do not all speak one tongue, all share in one fine set of aims and ideals, all conform to one established pattern of conduct, or all accept one definition of the good life, or the bad, or the purpose in it. Mexico and Mexicans, the flavor of the Spanish language, the manners and customs and attitudes of the people, the particular character and color and vitality that distinguishes their land, seem to be a fairly constant and natural and enlivening part of my life. So very briefly, I just wanted to say a little bit about Kathy Towle and Mauricio Ibarra. Both were born in Mexico City. They met in middle school. They started dating when they were old enough. They both went to Iberoamericana University of Mexico. Mauricio studying international affairs, Kathy, chemical engineering. They both went to Columbia University. Mauricio earning a master's in international affairs and public administration. He's a Fulbright Garcia Robles scholar, and Kathy a master's in business administration. They have two sons, Mauricio and Alejandro. Kathy said when they moved to Canada, she was very pregnant with Mauricio, and Alejandro was born 3 years later. They have lived in Mexico City, Ottawa, Canada, Washington, D.C., Albuquerque, New Mexico, and El Paso. Did I get them all? I got them all. Mauricio has been a member of the Mexican Foreign Service since 1998. He was Consul General of Mexico and he became Consul General of Mexico in El Paso in 2019. And as I mentioned, I knew him from 2008 when he was head of the Office for Special Affairs at the Mexican Embassy under Arturo Sarucán. He served as General Director for North America at Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, responsible for political, border, and security affairs with the U.S. and Canada. He also dealt with law enforcement. He served as Consul of New Mexico in Albuquerque. Kathy started her professional career in research and development with Procter & Gamble. She worked in corporate finance on Wall Street at Bankers Trust. She started and headed corporate finance department for Hipotecaria Su Casita, where she was director of corporate finance and strategy. She's worked in international business development throughout Latin America, has taught at the Anderson School of Management at University of New Mexico and the Woody Hunt School of Business at UTEP. And what she says, what they both say, is we met very young and we've learned how to appreciate each other.
Thank you, Adair. That was a wonderful introduction, and feel like we know you much better already. All right. So, apparently you met in middle school, but how did you meet? Were you sharing a class or what?
Well, Mauricio was in a different class, but he was in the class where all the kids were misbehaving. So they moved him to my class, which was labeled as the nerd class. So there the friendship began.
Oh, okay. So opposites do attract. Huh?
That's for sure.
Yeah, right. Great. And go ahead.
So it's very interesting because when I met Mauricio, he was the rebel. Mauricio was the rebel, right? And now the positions have changed. Now I'm the rebel, and he's the serious one.
Yeah, that often happens, doesn't it? When did you start dating actually, and what was your first date?
Well, you can start.
No, we started dating when we were both 15 years old. No, I was about to turn 16, so you can imagine that we have been very tolerant with each other after. And we dated for 10 years, and then we got married exactly the same day we started dating, 10 years after, and now we have been married for almost 32 years.
Almost 32.
And our first date basically was, as she was saying, I wasn't the best student in my class, so I never pay attention. So I looked Kathy up so she could explain whatever they were teaching during classes. So my first date was, please tell me how to do this.
So there you go. The friendship started that way.
So what kept you going with each other? Because it's very hard to stay together in high school. Did you ever break up?
Well, we did break up, I guess, for around 6 months in high school. And then when we graduated from a high school, we broke up for a year and then started dating again. And I guess that what has kept us together is we have fun with being together. So we laugh a lot and enjoy each other's company. So I think that makes a difference.
So what attracted you to each other? Especially as high school, a little bit more mature.
Well, I guess again, as I look for Kathy for teaching in different subjects, although let me say that we were classmates, and whenever I wanted to see if she had the right answer, she never let me copy her, never. So she was like, don't look at me. But I guess she has always been very bright. She was, the top of the class, and she has been very active all the time. So again, we had a lot of fun, and again, positives attract each other, I guess. So that's why we kept dating each other for all high school, actually, no? Until we broke. When we finished high school, I went to Europe. It took me longer in Europe than expected, so I would tell her, I'm coming back, and until she got tired, she said, well, okay, come back whenever you want. But then we got back together again.
And how about you? What do you say about that, Kathy?
I guess that even though Mauricio was the rebel, he was, in my view, always very mature, and I love the way he thought and the way he viewed life, so that really attracted me to him.
So what was rebellious about him? He was a rebel. What did he like? How did he like to cause trouble?
Well, any way a teenager causes trouble, I guess. Skipping class, and I don't know. Nothing too serious, but I guess that's how.
Yeah, not very compliant, I guess.
Not very
right.
compliant. I think that's a good way to put it.
Right, yeah.
Well, let me say. Let me say that since I was young, for example, I wanted things to be the way should be. So whenever you had a professor that really went beyond what he or she should be doing, then I called them out. No, so for people in the in our class, it was like, well, you're telling them things that I thought, well, no, it's They, as well as we should respect the teachers, they should respect us. So I was very much into, this is how it has to go, no? So a lot of people thought that I was, going against the system, but I wasn't.
Right. Well, when did you decide to get married, and who brought the subject up? Or was that just something you talked about all the time as you
I
were
guess
together?
we talked about it, I guess, being together for so long. And I guess that you mature as youngsters and you become adults and the relationship matures. And then we figured that we wanted to continue this adventure together. And I think it has been a really fun adventure. I mean, I look back in our time together and I can never think of a time that I wouldn't have had it any other way.
And although something that it's not really common, especially in Mexico, and since we have been dating for such a long time, then I had my mother who would tell me, you have to marry Kathy now. You have been dating for so long, no? So I would tell her, well, what kind of mother you are? I'm your youngest. You should want me to stay with you forever, no? And she was, no, go marry Kathy. So that was a pressure.
That was pressure, yes.
I had my cheerleader. I think I paid his mom without him knowing.
Yes, right. Well, that's always good to have the mother-in-law's endorsement. That's great.
Definitely so.
Right. Is she still in your life, or is she not with us anymore?
Unfortunately, she's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I think that from both sides, I think that we earned another set of parents. So I always saw Mauricio's parents as my other parents, and I think Mauricio felt the same with my parents.
Right.
And even with our siblings still, right? I don't think of only my two siblings, I think of his siblings as my siblings. And it's funny because I can look at his brother and know exactly what he's thinking. So I look at him and I'm like, no, you don't. And his wife, no, you don't what? And I know what he's thinking, so you cannot say it. So the same thing as with siblings.
So you're very close to all of them.
Yes.
That's really a wonderful thing. So when you think about your relationship, what advice would you give people? Do you think people should date for a long time like that, or do you think that there's
in my case, I would say that, well, it helps actually knowing the people you're going to marry, obviously. But in our case, I think it was an issue of communication. I always talk about how important it is to communicate, obviously, and trust. No, but because we would go as any teenager, in separate vacations, and we would go out and have fun in the vacation and go partying. But that was fine. No, we knew that we were going to do it as we were vacationing. That's normal. So we were never jealous of each other. So we trusted each other. We told each other everything. So I think that's key for a relationship. No.
Yeah, I think trust is very important, and you can imagine I studied engineering where in my class we were 50, out of which 4 were women. So all my classmates were guys. And Mauricio studied international affairs where I think they were 100 and I think 5 were guys. So it was impossible to think of jealousy because at the end of the day he was doing his work with friends that were girls and I was doing my work with friends that were boys. So at the end, what ended up happening was my group of friends and his group of friends got together and we would orchestrate like big parties together, so that worked out fine. But I think that just the trust and communication and respect, I think also respect is key to all of this. No?
So were you both very ambitious with your careers, or felt like you were going to work very hard because you really began your schooling in earnest and continued to go, right?
I think that this has been something important for both of us, right? So not only, I guess, being partners in a marriage, but also being partners in thinking about each other's careers and supporting each other, right? So I think that has also been something important, that we have always had the support. And I think it's a marriage of equals. I don't think that one is pulling to one direction or another.
Yeah, and also sort of having the same objectives. No, we both, for example, wanted to do a master's degree that we knew that it was important. So So we started applying for our master's degree together and different opportunities, no? So at the end, it turned out that, for example, Kathy was accepted at MIT, and I was not accepted in universities in Boston, but I was accepted at Columbia. So, and Kathy was waitlisted at Columbia. So we decided, well, we need to be together. So Kathy decided to reapply to Columbia. So we went together to Columbia, and we share also living as students, and each one with their own stuff, no? Both of us studying. So that's, I think that was part of how we got closer to each other, no?
So you had to make sacrifices for each other in order to stay together during that period of time, and possibly now too, right?
Exactly, but knowing that we needed to do what we need to do, no? And our careers have always been important. I know her career has always been important. I guess in that sense, Kathy has sacrificed a little bit more of her career, if you like. But what we have always talked is that her career let her do things that probably I would not be able to do if I would go with her somewhere, no? So she decided to start, she started working long distance, something that can be done in the private sector. In our case, it's very difficult to do that, no? So she started working long distance. She started teaching at the end. So these are things that you can do anywhere, I guess. And in my case, it's more difficult to try to find something else, no? Being part of, whenever you enter the Foreign Service, you're married to the Foreign Service, no? It's a way of life at the end.
So in this case, Kathy, did you realize that, you were going to have to kind of adapt your career opportunities to his Foreign Service career? Or did you think about that?
I guess I never thought about it that way. In the beginning, when Mauricio got transferred to Canada, I went to my boss and said, guess what? We're moving to Canada. And he's like, well, you're not quitting, you're telecommuting. So it was the first telecommuter in the year 2000. So Skype existed, so I worked through Skype, and I traveled with my 2 kids when they were little, and I would travel with 2 little ones once every month and a half. They would come to Mexico with me, and the grandmothers were thrilled because they would get to see their grandkids, but I would be coming and going. And then eventually, unfortunately, the bank that I was working for, I worked there for 12 years, it went under. So then I had to reinvent myself. So I always have had a passion for teaching, so I was invited to teach at UNM, and I started. And then when we moved back to Mexico, even though I had a full-time job in Mexico, at UNM they asked me if I would consider teaching online. So I have been doing that still. I still teach for UNM, so I have been teaching for UNM for 13 years. And the other factor here that we haven't talked about are our sons, right? For me, it was important to have the presence of one of us at home, right? Mauricio was hard because he was working long hours typically, or he still is working long hours, but somebody needed to be there. So I had the benefit of having that flexibility, telecommuting, and in the beginning, bringing our kids to Mexico. Once they started school, they would stay, and we needed to have somebody to help us so they could stay, but I was fortunate enough to do that. And then once I started teaching, it was great because my school calendar was like their school calendar, so that allowed me to have that flexibility too.
So you had your sons relatively maybe halfway into your marriage, is that right? Or it wasn't early in?
No.
We waited around 8 years, I guess.
Oh, 8 years, okay.
Because basically we went to study, and we said, well, we cannot start a family if we are students. No? So we went abroad, and then when we came back, we both started working. We both very long hours, and we traveled a lot. So it was complicated because she went away, and when she returned, then I went away. So it was complicated to actually include to see each other actually. So we waited a few times, and we said, well, actually, we have to enjoy, our relationship before having kids. That we knew that it was going to change everything, no. So, but yeah, both our kids, they're a vital and very important part of what we have, no?
Right, yeah. How old are they now?
They are 23 and 20. One is studying, the youngest is studying film in Chicago, and the oldest, he started aeronautical engineer, and then he did an MBA, and now he's working for Wells Fargo in North Carolina, in Charlotte. So,
Don't despair, because they say with regard to parenting, it's the hardest the first 40 years. So you got a little ways to go, right? So before you answer, okay, who's the disciplinarian in the relationship? Don't anybody say. How many of you think the consul is the disciplinarian? Okay, so there you have it. So you're the disciplinarian, Kathy, I guess, or
I don't think so.
no?
I don't think so.
How does that dynamic work? If the boys get in trouble, who talks to them?
I guess whoever is with them when they get into trouble, because the worst thing that you can ever do is wait until your father gets home, because then your authority is gone. So if something were to happen when I was in charge, then they would hear it from me. And if something were to happen when Mauricio was there, they would hear it from Mauricio. But I think I'm more easygoing, so that's my perspective. I don't know what Mauricio thinks.
well, something important is that we always agree with each other, no? We never contradicted each other with the kids, no? It was, if you said it, then I'll stick with it, so don't worry. And I think she's stricter than I am, but whenever it's always like the father has to be the one who, so I would, exactly. Because I remember my father, just by looking at us, we would just like, It wasn't like that with me, but they respected whenever I got angry for whatever, they were. But if you ask them, she's the disciplinarian.
That is not true. They think I'm the chill one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mom's the chill one. Okay. So, what were some of the biggest challenges in your early years related to parenting, relationship, career? Balancing things. What?
I guess not necessarily in the early years, because we both had our careers and we had that part figured out. I think what was the hardest was moving kids around every time we would pull them out of their lives and plop them into a new country. Or a new city, right? So I think that was the hardest, trying to work this out with the kids. I think between us, we've never had that type of problem. It's been more trying to address the issue with the kids. Having them pulled away from their life, then plop them someplace else, then they're finally happy, and then you pull them and you plop them somewhere else. So that, I think, has been the hardest process. I don't know if you agree.
No, I agree. Two things. I guess the moving part, which is essential for a diplomat at the end, but the actual moving is terrible. I hate moving, but you have to do it, no? You start throwing things away, and at the end, the house is exactly the same, and then you have to move all the things that you have bought during your stay, so it's a mess. So that part is terrible. But what Kathy is saying is true. It's a burden on the children at the end. In our case, for example, when we moved from Ottawa to Washington, D.C., our oldest was, I think, 5 years old. So I say, well, when they are 5-year-olds, they are movable, no? They won't complain. You just take them and you move away, and that's it. So I went probably 4 months before they did, because obviously the schools and all that. And at the end, our oldest son was very mad with me because I left. No, I said, well, come on, why? no, you're 5 years old, you cannot be complaining. He did, and he cared about me leaving. No, and whenever we pulled them to the other city, they were really mad, and we said, why? You're going to find here new friends, and yeah, but I won't be able to go to my friends' parties in Canada, no? So that's a burden. So that's very difficult until they are teenagers. Actually, when they are teenagers, it's very complicated. Yeah. And I think there and they were part of that conversation with my youngest son. That when we just moved here, he was being a teenager and moving to a different city, a bigger, a huge school, it's complicated. So that was hard.
When our youngest was 5 years old, and when we said that we were moving, his answer was, no, I was born in Canada, I am staying in Canada.
So a bit of Mauricio in him.
But that's another one that is better than that one. We moved from Albuquerque to Mexico City. No? So there was a soccer game, the U.S. against Mexico. So he would say, let's go, America. No? I say, well, hold on. If you want to root for the U.S., it's let's go U.S., it's not America. Eh? But you have to root for Mexico. So at the end, when we came here from Mexico here, he didn't want to leave Mexico. So it's sort of like that.
He gets attached.
He gets attached because suddenly they have friends, they have this type of living, and then you move them away. So.
Mm-hmm. So how did you help them to adjust to the move?
I guess being there, supporting them. I guess when you live away, you become a very close-knit family. So I think that as long as they know that you're there for them, I think that's what works. And I think to this day we have a very solid relationship. I guess we'll talk to our kids on a daily basis, which I know that will not occur with a lot of university students or young professionals, talking to their parents on a daily basis.
Especially boys.
Yeah.
They tend to not be so communicative. Yeah. So just really building a strong relationship with them.
Definitely. And I think when our eldest went to college, he all of a sudden realized, he said, the only thing constant in my life has been being with my family, right? Because I've lived in many places, I've gone to many schools, and the only thing that has been constant is my family. So it's very strange for me to be away from my family.
And something that is interesting, with my kids, I always said that they were truly NAFTA kids, now USMCA kids, because they are Mexicans, born in Canada, with dual nationality with the US, because Kathy's mother was from New Orleans, no? So they have really North American guys. So for them, at some point, it's complicated when. So where are you from? So they're like, well, a little bit of everything, no? So that's a complicated part for them also, just to realize that the multiculturality that they have in them, no?
Right. Yeah. What is their identity, kind of, so to speak? Yeah. So what has been the biggest surprise in your marriage?
That it lasted for so long.
I agree. No, I don't know. I don't think that there have been surprises as such. That is, oh my God, I'm surprised. No. I think we both went into this with our eyes wide open and knew each other well enough after 10 years of being boyfriend and girlfriend, right? So I don't think that surprises as such, I don't think so.
So how do you nurture your relationship? You've been together a long time. Is it boring now, or?
No, I think we laugh a lot.
You know each other very well, so you can predict.
No, you can predict, or you can look at the person and I know what you're thinking, right? Or just by looking at it, you can know the situation and the response because we've been together for so long. But I don't know. What do you think?
But as you said a while ago, we have fun with each other, So if we go to the movies together and we do things that we like doing together, So we have fun with each other, sports. We do well, now she does more sports than I do, but we like doing the same things. So I think that's easy.
Yeah. So you have a very demanding career. Kathy does too, but you have more flexibility. So how do you make decisions about how much you're going to work, family time, and being there for your wife and kids?
Actually, that depends on where I am. No, for example, Mexico City is very demanding, so we would start work at around. I would arrive at around 8 to not to be in traffic for 2 hours, because I left home at around 7, because if not, it will take me a long time, and I would arrive home at around 10. So that was in Mexico. That's the way work goes, no? And here it's more. Not so long hours. So depending on where you are, that's what we do, no? So here we can plan more what we want to do, at what time we're going to do. If you're going to have a dinner during the week, that's fine. In Mexico, you cannot do that, no? Planning actually for the weekend, it's more complicated. So in Mexico, basically, we took the advantage of whatever time we had left, or I had left, and Kathy and the kids were available. And the same thing happened, for example, when we go on vacations, no? They basically define the dates, and I try to see if I'm available. If I have something to do, then they move it. But it depends on where we are and the type of stress. Mexico City is really complicated to do that. No, I was complaining because we could not even go to the movies at 8 o'clock at night. No? So I said, that's something that we need to change, but that's the way it goes, no?
I think what has helped also is that in the beginning we both work very long hours. So since I've been sitting there and working for very long hours, I understand that many times his job responsibilities entail a lot of hours. So I'm not calling every 5 minutes, when are you coming home, when are you coming home, because I understand that he's busy. So I think that having that understanding, I think, has helped throughout the process. I know that he'd rather be home than being sitting in a meeting, right? So as long as you understand that it's not something that is being done on purpose, then it's fine, and you just go with the flow, and things will happen when they happen, and it's okay.
So what did you do for fun and family activities with the boys as they were growing up?
Well, I guess since we had I say more like a blessing of being able to live in different places. So it's great because you go to different places and you find things to do, right? So thinking about moving here. So people live here, people do things, so let's find out what people do in El Paso, right? So we go hiking, we figure out what's nearby. There are amazing national parks nearby, so let's go to a national park. So as I said, living in all these different places has been a blessing because we have learned to love and find out and learn about the different places that we lived in. So I think it has been more of a discovery of places.
Yeah, exactly. The important things in our career is to adapt to what you have. No, so basically you make your stay in one place whatever you want to make of it. No, so basically we love the people, especially this community. This is a very binational community, very welcoming community. So it's great to have friends all over the place and do the things you have everything here, no? For me, having Juarez as a neighbor city, it's great, no? But we like doing everything together. When the boys are here, we decide if we want to go hiking or we want to go to watch a football game, no? And something that we like doing is also traveling, no? Whenever we can travel abroad together, then we do it, and they like it. No, whenever we're planning a vacation, it's like, are we included?
I think something that I learned early on was to always look forward, right? Because if you keep looking back and, when I lived in Ottawa, I'll be miserable, right? So you have to live in the moment and look forward, because if you keep looking back, then you'll be miserable, and you have to learn and understand and learn to love where you live and look for experiences where you live.
How has faith influenced your relationship in your decisions and that sort of thing? Or has it? Maybe not.
I think it has. Kathy and I are both Catholics. We were not very good with the kids because we never took them to Sunday school because of the work, etc., and the moving and all that. So they not necessarily are very close to religion. But it has been part, but not to the extreme. No, I think we both respect the religion and religions actually, because her mom was Jewish, so we have a little bit of everything in the family, no?
Nice mixture. Yeah, I agree. I think that faith is an important aspect in our lives, but I think it's more doing it more privately within our home than really going to church or something like that.
So what guidance would you give younger couples or young people as they're making decisions about career and family? What do you think is the key thing for them to focus on for other people?
I think look for a balance, figure out what's important. As I said, for me, the kids were extremely important. I could have gotten any other job that I would have liked, but I wanted my flexibility to be able to be with the kids. So if you're thinking about a family, finding balance and figuring out what's important for you and for your family.
And then, what I would tell them is first, do something that you like, no? Something that I mentioned here with all my colleagues here at the Consul is that we spend more time working than our own homes. So you should be at least happy to come and work. No, all the worries have to be outside, not here, because we're going to be spending here a lot of time with our colleagues. So it's important to do something that you really like. No, I think that's the first thing. And the second one is that yes, you have to give yourself time to enjoy your family, your personal time. And for young couples, obviously, communicate with each other, no, trust each other, respect each other, no. The little things at the end adds up, no, with the things that we do. So try to be a kind person to not only to your family but to everybody, no. And that's the way that you can really be part of a community, no? You have to respect everybody, be kind to everybody, and try to help and collaborate in whatever you can.
So I think the battery's up, but anyway, what's the best piece of advice Kathy has ever given you?
I think I cannot think of only one. She has given me advice in everything, from personal stuff to work issues. So I think just being there and be supportive of anything that I do or we do together, I think that's an important thing. Not specifically one comment, or it's just being there and supportive in everything. And I think along my career, all this support of moving back and forth and, doing what she needs to be doing with the kids, with the house, when I'm abroad, whenever she has to work, I think that's something that, and recognizing the work that we both do, I think that's very important.
So, Kathy, what do you think about when you're giving Mauricio advice? Do you just give him advice, or do you?
Well, I guess that, you put yourself in the shoes of the other person. You try to understand the situation. Being an engineer, I like analyzing things, so looking at things and dissecting the problem, and then look at the alternatives, and then give alternatives, and then a recommendation, I guess. No?
So, okay, yeah. Okay, we'll do a three-way thing here. That's great. So the most important question, how do you know about Tom Lea and what influence has he had on you?
I have to say that I first heard about Tom Lea thanks to Adair. She was gracious enough to give me a book about his life. So that's when I heard about Tom Lea, and I was fascinated about his life here and his point of view here. And I agree that and I remember talking to Dee one day that he was saying, as you stand up in the mountain here in El Paso, you can't really tell where El Paso ends and where Juarez begins, right? So having this binational community that if you don't live here, you don't understand. So I think that has been the biggest impact, right? Thinking that we're just one community, and it's an amazing community. And I see it every day at the university, right? I teach at UTEP, and I have students from both sides of the border. And you can't really differentiate, right? They're just students, and they're just looking for the same things to succeed. And I think it ties back to Tom Lea and what he was looking for as well.
And I would say that I learned about Tom Lea when I was in Albuquerque. But I knew about him, but I didn't know him. And I agree with Kathy, Adair and you were the ones who told us more about it. You guys, Holly, when you started working for the Tom Lea Trail, also in Chihuahua, after the Texas and New Mexico had already defined the Tom Lea Trail, and I remember that you asked me to support your cause with the governor in Chihuahua, and I still have the proclamation related to the Tom Lea Trail besides my office. I have it. You were kind enough to give it to me. So what I would say is that I cannot say enough of the work that you do in terms of highlighting Tom Lea, and again, because it's a reflection of what this community has to offer. He was a very binational individual. He liked it, and he represented. Well, he had many hats, as we like to say, but he was very binational, and that's why he painted and he illustrated many things on both sides of the border. And again, I think that's an example of what this community, as Kathy mentioned, has to offer. No? I also quote former Mayor Margo when saying that you cannot say where El Paso ends and where Juarez begins, because that's a reality. And it shows how binational this community is. And we have learned that this is a very collaborative community, very kind community, always looking for the well-being of our neighbors or the neighbors. So I think that's something that at the end Tom Lea wanted to portray in every drawing, mural, and all his actions.
Right. Well, we're assuming that you love El Paso, or we wouldn't have invited you to to be interviewed. So, briefly, why do you love El Paso?
Again, the first thing that I always say whenever I go anywhere is the community. The people here are amazing, lovely people, welcoming, hard workers, collaborative. I think the first and the most important trait of El Paso is its people. I think that's the most important thing. And I think that for me, it's something that I always like sharing with people abroad, because I don't know, whoever has heard me talk before, I always say there's not necessarily the best perception of the border outside of the border, but the reality is that when people come to El Paso and they get to know the city, they get to know the people, they get to know this binationality, they are in love with it. And it happened to us, no? I have been here for work many times, as I was in Albuquerque and in Mexico City. Even when I was still in Washington, D.C., I came to El Paso for different meetings. But living here, it's a different thing. And you really learn to appreciate it, to love it. And that's why many of my predecessors have lasted for a long time. It's something that we are not asking, well, we need to go somewhere else. We are more than glad to be here. We're more than glad to be contributing to whatever we can contribute. We are more than glad to share with all of you the culture, the border culture, to promote local artists. Not all our cultural program is related to that. How do we highlight the local talent that we have? So I think for me that's the most important thing in El Paso.
Well, you heard it here first. The Ibarras are not leaving. He's going to retire here. It's really good news, everybody.
You say it jokingly, but we have talked about it, and it would be a place that we consider retiring in. So it's still some time away. We don't know what the future holds, but it would be a place that we would consider. And I agree with Mauricio. I mean, the community is amazing in every way that you see it, right? From whatever age, whatever range, I think that the community is amazing. And we did not talk about landscape, but I love the desert. So I find it beautiful. When we lived in Northern Virginia, when Mauricio was posted in DC and they told us that we were moving to Albuquerque, I'm like, the desert? Will it be like living in the desert? And I think it's amazing. It's a beautiful place. People that come don't appreciate it, but once you live here and you turn around and you look at the mountain and you look at it different times of the day, it's beautiful. So what's not to love?
I believe El Paso is a jewel. And that's why I always, like saying that we need to highlight everything that we have here. Now, the problem is that I think we need to go beyond what we already do to highlight outside here what we have here in El Paso. All the things that we have been talking about, that's what we need people outside to learn about it. No? I quote Mayor Margo when you said not even Texan legislators know El Paso, some of them. So that this is really a jewel that we need to really highlight everywhere we go. I think that's key, and that goes for the whole region, but especially El Paso.
Well, thank you very much for wonderful remarks and insights into so many aspects of life. Thank you for having the courage to do this. Let's give them a hand.
We survived.
Yeah, you survived. Yes. And so now we're going to entertain questions from our audience, and we have microphones here. Well, we'll keep one up here. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, buenas noches.
Hi.
I want to ask a quick question. In the household, when your sons were growing up, how was the language dynamic of Spanish and English? Was it English outside and then Spanish inside? Because living in Canada, then the U.S., and moving around, I'm sure.
Okay, so we really tried having Spanish as the main language. So we really tried. So with our elder son, it worked really well. Actually, he prefers to speak Spanish, although he's fully bilingual. With our younger son, that became a little bit more difficult because when he would play with his older brother, the language of play would be English. So then it would be hard to continue pressing Spanish. So I think it's my mom's revenge, because my mom was American and she always spoke English to us, and we would always answer back in Spanish. So now we have the opposite. We will always speak Spanish to Alejandro and he will always respond to English, except when he's now at school and he will answer and he doesn't want his friends or the people around him to understand. It's the only time that he will speak Spanish to us. So I think that we were not forceful enough in terms of saying, I don't understand English inside of the house. So.
But I just want to add that something that is important in the case for the kids and for us is to talk to them in Spanish, because if not, they will lose the language. And that happens to anybody here that we tell them, just talk to them in Spanish. You don't want them to lose their language. So the thing with those diplomats, the kids at school, they speak in English all the time. So that's why they play in English. So that's why we need to talk to them in Spanish. And even if they answer in English, Spanish for us is really, really important. And this is something, for example, that the consulate is promoting for our community here in El Paso. No? We need to keep, conveying to them the importance of maintaining the language. And that's why, for example, we have a program where we give Mexican textbooks to the different schools for the Spanish-speaking families to actually have material to relate to, and it goes from math to literature, whatever, no? But they need material to try to keep that Spanish, because if not, at the end they will lose it, and that would be a shame. Being bilingual, it's as we can all understand, basically in this city, it's key, and it gives you an advantage, clear advantage, no, if you go to different places. Thank you.
I just want to add something. I just want to add something, Consul General. It's a pleasure to work for you, but I have a said, like every I said to people that speak 2 or 3 languages. Yeah, this is something that I heard from an American, and I just believe in that. And it says, the English was made to talk with the birds. The French was made to speak about love. Pero el español se hizo para hablar con Dios.
There you go. That's good. Other questions?
I'm sure my ignorance, but what exactly do you do as Consul General?
Thank you. Basically, obviously, I'm the head of the consulate, and my position is basically coordinate everything that happens here. So we have so many programs to support our community, going from those are the documentation area where we provide passports, matrículas consulares, which is a Mexican ID for people living abroad, for example. We give powers of attorneys, birth certificates, everything. Then we have another area which is protection services, and what they do, they basically support the community with legal services, complicated cases of domestic violence, for example. So we coordinate with different and collaborate with different allies in the city that work with us and that help us do all that work, no? And then we have cultural affairs, so we have a cultural program year long. We have an area related to economics and border issues, where they go to all these private events, and we talk about border infrastructure, trade, etc. So we have not to highlight and strengthen the political relationship that we have at the different levels, locally, both with the local government, to the state government, to the federal government station here. So we need to be all over the place, We need to participate in all these events, because we have to have a presence locally. But at the end, we need to coordinate everything that is happening in the consulate. So we have to make sure that everything is running smoothly. We have to take care if there are, if somebody has he didn't receive a good service, then we need to address that. Why is that happening? So we need to address all the little problems internally that we have. Be sure that the service that we're providing to the community is the one that we need to be serving. We need to be talking in the different, for example, media outlets, to tell the people what we have for them, some of the challenges that the consulates. So for anyone, if you don't know, we have 53 consulates now in the US. Now we are the country with the most consulates. We are all linked together. We share the databases. So we need to be, in our case, coordinating everything that is happening locally so that the community really receives the support that they need. No, so that's the function of the Consulate General. The reality is that the people that really do the work are the ones who are really on the ground doing everything. No, they put together these types of events, for example, or they go and they interview people at the detention center, if you will. No, they organize, for example, these telephone rallies where we collaborate with one of the Spanish-speaking TV networks, and we sort of a call center so that everybody can call and ask whatever they need to ask. If it's a consular issue, if it's a migration issue, no? Basically, the legal advice, we don't do it directly. It has to be a certified, a lawyer, no, who knows about migratory issues. No, we sort of like give them the direction, but the specialists are the ones who advise directly the community. So we need to be everywhere and try to coordinate everything that it's happening. But we have to have presence in all of these places, in all of these events, and obviously we are the ones reporting to Mexico, so we have to be advising from the Secretary of Foreign Affairs to the undersecretaries to all the chain of command. We need to be obviously very in contact with Mexico, reporting what is happening. No, so we need to be coordinating again here what every area is reporting back to Mexico. So I have to review everything to see, because everything that goes out, it's from the consulate, but it has my signature. So I have to review everything that it's coming out. So it's interesting because there are certain things that only I can do, no? So signing, for example, birth certificates, I can do it, or I have to delegate the signature, for example, to Ricardo, who's the deputy consul. We are the only two who can sign. So I have to go to an event, and then I have to come back to sign the birth certificates, no? We have a function of civil
Justice of the peace.
Exacto, justice of the peace. So we can marry people, no, but that only I can marry Mexicans here, no. Notary public as well, no.
Consulado móvil.
So we do so many things that we need to really make sure that the community is receiving the service that they should be doing, and that's more or less the work that we need to do, that I do as the head of the consulate. But again, I have to have the support of the heads of every area, because we have a head on every area, and then under that we have all these people that really do the hard work, no? And they are all over the place, all over the city. They are the ones who are here all the time, no? People ask them for advice, and they are all over the place. We have a program, and Kathy mentioned it, that it's a mobile consulate. So we go to the faraway communities, and we take all the services to them. No, we packed all our equipment in a few vans, and then we take them and we set a place either in a church or in a school or in a civic center to be able to help the community, because a lot of Mexicans cannot come to El Paso, for example. No, most of the consulates, the mobile consulates that we organize, are in New Mexico, because we oversee all El Paso, Hospead County, and then the 9 New Mexico border counties. No, so we have to take all this equipment and bring the services to them instead of making them come back. No, because they could get in trouble with the federal authorities, etc., no? Especially if they don't have documents.
Well, we can see why you work long hours. So thank you very much for some great questions and being such a wonderful audience. We're going to migrate over to this area here and have a special presentation. And it's based on a comment that the consul made 3 years ago to me. So see if he can figure out what it is.
This will be a very special special unveiling, but I'm just going to give you a very quick background. In 1947, 100 years after the Mexican-American War, President Truman of the United States traveled to Mexico City and laid a wreath on the tomb of the Niños Héroes, the young cadets who committed suicide so that they wouldn't become prisoners of the United States. It was in Mexico. That gesture by Harry Truman created goodwill in both countries, saying that a period that had been fraught by not bitterness, because we're family on both sides, but disappointment had been wiped away by the gesture of one president. In El Paso, the Pan American Roundtable, to commemorate that, commissioned Tom Lea to do a portrait of Benito Juarez, Mexico's great president, for whom Juarez is named. He lived there when there was the French intervention. A colleague of President Lincoln lived at the same time. 4'6" Zapotec Indian. Abraham Lincoln was 6'4". But the thing that's so significant about that is Pan American, women on both sides. That group was created during the Mexican Revolution to assist people that were fleeing from Mexico to have a life here, including involvement in culture, arts and culture. But so this painting, the original, was sent to Blair House, where President Truman was living at the time, because the White House was being remodeled. When I served President Bush, I asked for it for 8 years, and no one had any clue where it was. But because we do Tom Lea events here locally, there was a presentation on the portraits of Tom Lea, including this lost one. And a man from the State Department came, Kevin O'Reilly, over Mexican affairs. Did you know him? He called us. I knew he's a friend, so his name's here. He called us and said, I think we found your painting. And they restored it. It had been water damaged, but it's now, we have gone to see it. Holly has taken groups to see it in the diplomatic reception rooms at the State Department. A painting by an El Paso artist commemorating the great Mexican president, Benito Juarez. And so Holly, it was her idea to have this reproduced. What did he say to you that made you do this?
Well, we brought our reproduction of the portrait from our offices and displayed it here for an event we were doing. And the consul said, I want one of those. So we got him one.
And I will say one thing, Tom Lea usually never did portraits for hire. And he did them for his friends primarily, but he thought Benito Juarez to be a good and wise man. And he wanted to do it for the Pan American Roundtable and for President Truman.
Wow. Well, actually, I'm really honored actually just to have this painting. Holly, thank you for remembering that. Thank you, Adara. I think it's incredible to have a replica of Tom Lea painting here at the consul. I think it's amazing. It's very well done, and I remember exactly that event that you brought the picture, and I said, well, we need to have one of those. This is one of our most recognized presidents ever, so I think it's important, and thank you. It's really an honor to have it here, and thank you very much. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Adara. Thank you to the Tom Lea Institute for sharing this with us. It's part of the binationality and of the culture of the border. Thank you very much.